Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Practices in Managing and Monitoring Mobile and User Experiences. I'm Frank Davis, Vice President of Marketing here at Correlsense, and on behalf of everyone here on the Correlsense team, I'd like to welcome you to today's event. Before we get started, I just wanted to quickly go through our agenda. We'll begin. I'm going to go through a little bit of background and some housekeeping items. I'll try to keep this short because obviously this isn't what you came here to see today in our event. Then we'll talk a little bit about the challenges that the mobile web presents to people, followed by approaches and solutions to mobile monitoring, and finally tied up with some case studies, followed by your questions and answers. Now a little background information. First of all, we're planning to keep the presentation to 30 minutes because I know that, like everyone else, that we value your time and we want to try to keep this presentation pithy and to the point. Please feel free to submit questions via the chat window along the way, and we'll try to answer the questions during the presentation when possible or at the end. And finally, with the slides and recordings will be made available tomorrow via the Correlsense blog, and I'll be sending a link to everyone so you have access to that. And without further ado, I wanted to introduce today's speaker, Dan Juengst, our VP of Solution Engineering at Correlsense, who has over 10 years experience in the application performance management space and is an expert in monitoring multiple different kinds of applications. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Dan.
All right, great. Thanks a lot, Frank. I appreciate it, and I appreciate also everybody's time today. We know every day is busy, so we appreciate the time out to join us on this event. So today we want to talk about mobile applications. That's why you're all here, right? And we want to talk in particular about mobile application performance and some of the tools and some of the best practices that we see customers using out there in terms of ensuring and delivering excellent mobile application performance. So to begin with, let's touch base on a little bit about the mobile web today. It's information that you probably already know, but I thought it would be a good refresher just to start with this. Today, in today's day and age here in 2011, mobile is really becoming quite big and quite pervasive. We all see and probably use ourselves people in airports using iPads and iPhones and Android devices and Windows mobile devices and Galaxy tablets. Whatever they are, they're starting to appear everywhere, in airports, even in restaurants, taxi cabs, wherever you are, people are actually using mobile devices to be quite productive and to get a lot done. It started out, I think, maybe about 10 years ago, I was in a company that did what was called the wireless web, and that was going to be the next big thing. Well, it didn't take off in 2001 like we had hoped, but now here in 2011, it really is becoming quite big. There's been a number of research studies done on the use of mobile in the world, and one of them found out that there's about 116 million Americans that are using and consuming mobile media, whether it's on their phone or on a tablet or even on a laptop in a mobile context. So that's a huge number of Americans today that are in touch and using the mobile technologies in the mobile web. And we've also seen that the traffic that's being generated from these devices and from the applications and websites that run on top of them is really taking off. The data shows that 7% of all web traffic now comes from mobile applications and mobile devices. That's a huge thing, and it's growing very quickly. IBM has also done a study that says the traffic in the holiday season this year, they expect to really double. The retail traffic, people doing mobile retail, doing mobile purchasing of products online on mobile applications or on mobile websites. They feel it's going to double this year, really attributing to the fact that it really is taking off. People are really adapting it to their daily lives and folding it right in, and it's become a part of our life. So the downside of this popularity and of this great success of mobile technologies and mobile devices and mobile applications is that expectations have been set on performance, right? Users are very impatient when it comes to the performance of their mobile applications. First of all, they're probably in a hurry, and that's why they have the mobile device instead of sitting at their computer. and so they don't have a lot of time, so they don't have a lot of patience. Data shows that 75% of users will actually bounce off of a web application or a website from a mobile device if it doesn't load within 5 seconds. So they're on to the next thing. They don't have time to sit there and wait for it to load, wait for the gears to churn. So that just is an indicator that it really is important to focus on performance when you're talking about mobile applications and mobile sites and accessing mobile data. It becomes very critical. Another thing that really adds to the complexity of the mobile landscape is that it's not just about mobile websites or back in the day when I worked on it, WAP protocol, web pages, but there's all kinds of technologies out there now, whether it's mobile applications on any of the smartphone platforms, or mobile web pages that are hitting multiple different types of devices and have to contribute or have to take into account different browser types. And even on a single platform like Android, there can be a number of different form factors and a number of different versions of the operating system. So the thing it's really important to try to keep in mind is you've got to take into account all these variances and make sure that the customers, the end users, are getting the same experience, really no matter what kind of platform they're on. Whether it's an application or a website, whether it's an iPhone or an Android, they really need to be seeing the same kind of experience, and that needs to be a good experience. So let's talk about probably why you're here today. Talk about a little bit about some of the best practices that we've seen out in the industry in terms of mobile performance monitoring of the end user experience for mobile applications or mobile sites. So it's certainly a key thing. It's certainly important to keep the customers coming back to your mobile sites or have them keep using your mobile applications. And it's important, going to be important to your business, especially as mobile commerce drives forward and really becomes a bigger part of the end user's life. So the first best practice is a little bit of motherhood and apple pie, but it's an important one. It's really be strategic. So you need to think about your mobile application performance in the context of the strategic goals that you have for your mobile applications. And of course, those need to be driven by the strategic goals that your company has or your business has. So if you can back out from your business goals, what are the goals for your application? Why are you building this application to begin with? You can back out from that. What do you need from a performance standpoint for your application? What should the SLAs be in order to meet those goals and to be able to attain, the service levels that you need? Second best practice is a little bit of a no-brainer, but it's be mobile ready. When you're working on mobile applications and designing mobile applications, you need to think about a lot of the mobile aspects of it, right? The devices are small and they have smaller CPUs, so you need to have fast load times. It also comes into the context of the users. What are the users doing when they're hitting these devices? Well, they probably don't have a lot of time to sit around and wait. So things need to be designed so that they're very fast in terms of loading and very responsive. As well, you need simple navigation. You need big buttons and a clean user interface. The user doesn't have time to kind of digest your user interface and figure out kind of which hyperlink to click on or which button to press in a very complex situation. They need something simple, clean, and easy to navigate. Of course, the content should fit on the screen, and that's a factor because the screens are all smaller, right? And they're all different sizes. So you need to take that into account certainly when you're designing either a web application or a mobile application. What is going to be the real estate that you're going to have? Be very careful with your real estate. Don't waste it, but also make best use so that it's clean and easy to use. And then, I think a big and an important piece in terms of the application design is that the look and feel should be consistent across your different devices, across different platforms, even from the web to mobile. You should have a similar and consistent user experience. This all comes down to brand, right? A big part of your branding and your image is the experience that your users have when they interface with you. And how do they interface with you today? Well, a lot of it is through mobile applications. And so you need to have a consistent experience and a consistent user interface. And then finally, when you're designing and building applications for the web, be sure to take advantage of any analytic data and any feedback that you can acquire from these applications. Use this feedback, use this analytic data to help you, design the next revision better and to help you, improve the performance of the application as well. So best practice number 3. And this is really, again, about performance goals and SLAs. You've targeted this application that you want to build. You're building it, you're designing it, and you have business goals for it. And so you define what the SLAs are for the performance for the application that you need to build. And so now you have a set of SLAs well defined. Well, you need to share those SLAs back with the business and help them understand how your application that you're building and how its performance is going to help drive business and how by meeting these SLAs the business will be successful and it will help meet the goals that were set out for it. So, being open and transparent within your organization about the application performance, about the mobile performance, and being able to drive the SLAs and being able to share what the SLA attainment and performance was, reporting on it, and sharing those reports with the rest of the business. So number 4, best practice number 4, be paranoid. Well, that's interesting. What do I mean by that? Well, as you can see from the screenshot here, lots of cameras watching lots of things, right? So by be paranoid, what we mean is you need to watch every request that comes in from your mobile application so you can understand their performance. You need to see every transaction that's coming in. See and capture every user transaction coming from a mobile application or a mobile site, and then be able to store those and be able to then apply performance thresholds to them and set SLAs and then manage those SLAs going forward. But the only way you can really understand the performance of your application and the success that your customers are having is if you watch every end user transaction and capture them and store them and then monitor them going forward. So seeing every single transaction is really critical to managing the performance of web applications, and it can be a lot, right? For web applications or for mobile applications, there can be a lot of transactions coming because you have potentially millions of mobile applications out there, mobile browsers, and so you need to gather all that data and then do analytics and aggregations on top of it in order to roll up and get the most meaning out of it. So in addition to watching every single transaction, you need to see every hop of every transaction. You need to see the key components of the individual user request and where the user was spending time. So the first key component is the end user experience. So for a mobile transaction, a mobile request that comes in from either a mobile app or a mobile browser, you need to know kind of, first of all, what is the overall response time for that user's request. And with this data, you can, when the user complains, you can go look and see exactly what their transaction did and how long it took. But you need to see this overall end user response time, and then you just see other things related to that. So if it is a mobile browser application, you need to see how long did it actually take that mobile browser to draw the page, right? What was the rendering time? And also, most importantly for mobile, you need to know how much time was spent on the network. So there's lots of hops and lots of complexity in the network that is in between the mobile device and your data center. So you need to understand how much of that time is spent on that network, and so you know whether it's a performance issue, maybe a result of something in the network, or is it in your data center. So that network latency piece is very important for mobile devices and mobile applications. And then finally, to really separate out and understand the end user experience, you need to know as a part of the total response time of the transaction, how much time was spent in the data center itself. So how much time was spent in the data center, how much time was spent in the network, and then how much time may have been spent on the application or in any rendering that was done. So those are the 3 key end user experience metrics. In addition to that, when you use those metrics to understand the performance of your transactions from your mobile applications, when you see that a transaction runs slow, you need to know why. So if it's not on the network, then maybe it's in the data center. And so you need to look into the data center and see where within the data center the time was being spent. So you need to take a look and see, okay, that transaction came in and it hit a proxy server, and then it went on to a web server, and then it went on to an application server, and then it hit a data warehouse gateway, and then it made a call to a mainframe or a call to a database or both. So having visibility into that transaction beyond just the end user experience is equally important, equally critical. You need to know step by step where that transaction went, and again, for that individual user's transaction. So seeing every hop of the transaction is really critical to managing the performance of these mobile applications. Furthermore, you need to be able to do analytics on those transactions. So you're seeing all your end user transactions, all your mobile application transactions, and you're getting lots of data about that. That's great, but you need to understand and be able to do comparisons across that data, comparing good transactions to slow ones. Why does one mobile user's transaction run slow, but everybody else's is running fine? So you need to be able to do things like an SLA analysis, an SLA comparison, which compares the transactions that met the SLA target to ones that exceeded the SLA target. And what's different about them within the data center? Where do they spend time? Well, in this case, it looks like they spend a lot more time in the mainframe. So having that visibility, for mobile applications that are touching the enterprise, that are pulling data out of a data center or out of a database or whatever's on the back end, is very important to understanding the overall performance of that mobile application. So the fifth best practice that we see is you need to be smart. You need to understand what is happening across the space-time continuum, as Mr. Einstein, Dr. Einstein would say. So you need to look across time. You need to understand your mobile application performance from a historical standpoint, being able to look back in time and see what happened with my individual requests that were coming in over the past day or the past week or the past month. And you need to be able to look across space. So look at different locations and geographies, and this is great for mobile because you get a lot of good location data out of mobile devices. So you need to understand what the SLA performance is for different locations versus just different applications. In this case, we may see that one location seems to be fine, Boston seems to be fine, but Houston has a problem. So, and it looks like it's a network problem in Houston. So there's something impacting our mobile users that are located in Houston, but everybody else seems to be okay. And then the sixth best practice is perhaps my favorite. It's be lazy. So get SLAs and set SLAs and get an SMS on your couch when there's a problem. So the point here is to really use automation and to allow the tools to do the job for managing application performance, whether it's mobile or not, but managing mobile applications and the SLAs that you've set for them and how the tools alarm you and alert you when those SLAs get violated, so you can kick back and relax a bit. You need to enforce SLAs for the mobile application experience, no matter what type of requests are coming in, what type of application it is, whether it's a mobile trading application or a mobile retail application or just a mobile informational application. And also not only set SLAs at the transaction level, the request level, but also at the application level as well. So understand, for different applications, what's the average response time, and then what was the SLA attainment? What percentage of my request actually met my response time target? That's what we mean by SLA. So to summarize, you really can't understand fully the mobile performance without really monitoring the end user experience of the users of the mobile applications, and also getting visibility into the data center performance for those applications that are sending requests back into a data center and pulling valuable data out. And that's what a lot of mobile applications are doing today. So there's the six practices, 6 things you need to do. You need to be ready and be strategic about what you're doing. Be mobile, so have a mobile design mindset when you're building your applications. Work within your business to share your SLAs and be open about what you're doing in terms of meeting them. And then be paranoid, meaning watch every transaction that's coming in so that you know when any of them go sideways, whether it's coming from a mobile application or a mobile website or whatever the end user client is. And then be smart, so be aware kind of across both space and time of how things are performing, and be lazy. In other words, use automation to make your life easier. Take advantage of the tools that you have in order to set alarms and do the work for you. As a quick case study, there's a major consumer electronics company. Names will be kept silent to protect the innocent. But they had a situation where they were adopting mobile technologies to really work on to try to improve employee productivity, really mostly around their field sales force, right? They have field sales reps out there to call in on customers, and they wanted to give them tools to just make their life easier, make it so they didn't have to lug a big laptop around with them. So they designed and built smartphone applications for what they called the mobile workforce. So these are some of the key applications that the mobile workforce needed to use, the CRM system and the order entry system. They built these applications for a couple of different client types to start with, Android and then Windows Mobile. And then they outfitted the sales teams with all these devices. They said, here's your fancy new smartphone. It's going to make your life easier. You know, go have at it and sell lots of products. So that was great. They deployed it and put it out there. And then not before too long, realized that they were starting to get a lot of complaints. The users were trying to run these applications. They were trying to connect back in. The applications on the smartphones and devices were connecting back in over VPN to the data center to get access to the real CRM system behind the scenes, some of the production databases, and they were having application performance issues on these mobile applications. Then they realized, well, heck, we don't have any visibility into these mobile applications. We don't know what's going on with these user transactions. You know, where are they going? Where are they really spending time? Is it a network issue? Is it a handset issue? Whatever it is. So it became a huge headache for the CIO because he was the guy that championed the whole idea. So he's having to spend a lot of time on bridge calls, and he's got lots of teams involved in trying to troubleshoot this, wasting time when they could be doing bigger and better things like working on his cloud project. So they looked around. They found a solution called SharePath from Correlsense, by the way, and it is a solution with a mobile open API collection capability that allows it to embed performance collectors into smartphone applications and then gather data and tie that into transactional data on the back end for application performance management. So they did that. They adopted it, built it into their smartphone app, and they were then gathering transaction data from their smartphone applications, individual user requests that were coming in. They then defined, the service level agreements for response time that they wanted to set. What were the target response times that they expected for these applications, these mobile applications, and when were they really getting that? And they then began getting alerts and saw violations and saw that there were issues. So then they used the SharePath backend data center technology to see where those individual requests were going in the data center. Which databases were they hitting, which mainframes, which CRM system, and how much time were they spending on each tier. And so with that deep visibility into the transactional performance in the data center, they were able to figure out where the bottlenecks were. They figured out some issues in the application design on the handset and also some issues within their data center infrastructure. So they re-architected things, redeployed the applications, and are now seeing much better performance. So kind of a good example of how a real enterprise is using mobile today. There's lots of applications for mobile, whether it's consumer-facing e-commerce or enterprise applications, and all of them need to be focused on performance. So how does the SharePath Correlsense SharePath solution work? Well, it's actually quite elegant and powerful. First, it has a back-end server, which is our monitoring component. And then on each of the tiers of the application in the data center, we deploy a very small software component that monitors those tiers and allows us to get the transactional visibility step-by-step in the data center. And then for the back-end systems, we see those as what we call observed tiers, so we can see requests going to them without actually putting any monitoring software on the mainframe or on the database. And then for the mobile applications, we have a couple of approaches, whether it's a mobile website or a mobile web application. We have something called the mobile page tracker. And then if it's a mobile app for Android or iPhone or Windows Mobile, we have a mobile app collector open API that allows you to use our API to feed mobile performance data back to the rest of the SharePath system, which then stitches a complete transaction together, starting at the mobile device, going through all the tiers in the data center to the back end and back out. So very elegant and easy to install solution, and is working quite well for a number of our customers. So that's a quick run through of what we've seen as mobile best practices. I'm going to turn it back over to Frank at this point to wrap it up.
Great. Well, thank you, Dan. Great and informative presentation for us today. This is the point where we ask to see what questions people have. I don't see any questions at the moment, so if you have them, please feel free to enter them through the chat window. Just if you're interested in more information about anything that Dan talked about today, feel free to email us at info@correlsense.com, or if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Correlsense's SharePath product, whether it's our SharePath real user monitoring software, which is available free for you. There's a free version of it available for download either at correlsense.com or realusermonitoring.com. The best way to get a quick view of your SLAs for your mobile web applications might be using SharePath RUM from Correlsense. With that, I don't see any questions. Well, on behalf of Dan and myself and all the folks here at Correlsense, we'd like to thank you for joining us today and have a great day.